Since the mid-1960s, our nation has been flooded with illegal drugs, which alter the nutritional health of the body. Because the resistance to disease of an addict or frequent user of drugs is reduced, these drugs alter the state of mind of those who become long-term dependents or addicted. The state of mind of a drug user or abuser meets the clinical definition of mental illness. They become deeply interested in many topics which mean nothing to the reality of their existence, and they become disinterested in the normal facts of life which support their continuing survival and success. Facts of life become uncool, while the strange, the useless, and all topics related to rebellion against parents, school, and society are cool. Using the normal tricks of government, we are unable to stop the flow of drugs into this country. This is because drugs are a black market. That is, the price of drugs increases when we capture the drug dealers and their big shipments. When we cut off the supply of drugs, when we take these dealers out of the loop, the rules of capitalism take over. Short supply reveals demand and increases price, and the increased price motivates more ambitious capitalists to become drug dealers because that's where the money is. Logic tells us those who enter into the drug trade are the ambitious, the brave, the desperate. Many years ago, the French government took advantage of these characteristics of the criminal class. They formed a regiment which became known to the world as the French Foreign Legion, and French criminals were given a chance to escape incarceration if they would join it. And the Legion became known as the toughest fighting organization in the world. In the United States, we now have more than 7 million people in prison, on parole, or on probation for drug use and drug dealing, and we have not made a dent in the industry. Wherever willing buyers exist, a willing seller springs into action to provide him the drugs and take the money. As the population of Americans who use drugs increases, the incidence also increases of random and stupid violence directed against other Americans. Drugs break up families. Drug users get fired from their jobs, and drug dealers are usually associated with weapons, if only to protect themselves from other drug dealers. Broken families are a source of stress, mental instability, and violence. Lost jobs are a source of mental instability and violence. Drug use itself is a source of mental instability and violence. And all these things are connected with dissociative, antisocial, self-destructive, and violent behavior. In other words, drug use produces personal failure and the failure of relationships, and both the use of drugs and the resulting social failures bring on mental instability. Mental instability, induced by the failure of a drug user, sometimes creates the suicidal killer, the hostage taker, the homicidal carjacker, the schoolboy shooter, the nervous armed robber who beats a little old lady for $35. Here's my solution. The federal government should request all judges to review the background of those convicted of drug use, drug transportation, and sales. And if in the judgment of the judge, the nation would be better served by this convict in the uniform of the National Army, the judge should sentence these convicts to a period of honorable service in the United States Army. The sentence should be in units of 4 years, not to exceed 20 years, and the sentence should include a mandate that if the convict commits a crime while in uniform, he will serve the remainder of his sentence in a state penitentiary. This is the reestablishment of an old and honorable custom. In the past, judges in the South, across the Midwest, and in rural areas all over the country always have despaired of sending dopey kids into the prison system. No judge in his right mind wants to put a kid in crime school. So a strategy evolved by which the boy would be diverted into a much tougher institution, possibly for a shorter time. The judge would sentence the convicted felon to the maximum penalty in prison for the crime he committed. Then, when the boy and his parents are gasping and weeping, the judge would say, "Well, maybe that is a little tough. Tell you what, son, I will suspend your sentence if you will go to that gentleman in the back row and sign on for a full hitch in the United States Army. There he is right there. Go out into the world, learn some character," the judge would say. "Learn how to be a man. And then come back to me and tell me if I did the right thing." The boy would turn around and look, and a recruiting sergeant would stand up in the back row, all spit-shined and covered with ribbons and medals. The sergeant would wave, "Hi there, I'm the one he's talking about," as if someone would need to point out a recruiting sergeant in a courtroom full of dopers about to be sentenced. This is how recruiting sergeants make the big money. They go to judges and they say, "Look here, Your Honor, you don't need to fill up the prison system with these kids, just give them to me before they become serial killers. If you're about to sentence somebody you think could be rehabilitated, let me talk to him first. We have a 200-year tradition of teaching goofy kids how to act like men. When you sentence someone to drug rehab, don't you call it boot camp? Well, the Army invented boot camp. And besides, when he gets out of the Army, he's going to be eligible for a lot of different jobs. When he gets out of prison, he'll be lucky if he's paid to strip shingles off a roof. And that's the real reason, folks, because people with a prison record don't get the good jobs. They don't even get the mediocre jobs. And a man who is not allowed to work will be selling drugs again. Let the judges sentence our drug users and drug dealers to a hitch in the United States Army. I am Quixote.